Proceed.
Thank you. I am back again to present AB 2538, which is primarily designed to prevent gun dealers from selling consumer information on the commercial market. Throughout this year, we've been listening to gun dealers as well as vendors regarding their concerns with regards to AB 962, which will take effect sometime early next year in 2011. The most common complaint, a complaint that was raised last year in committee, is that the existing definition of a handgun ammunition, which has been on the books for the last 30 years, is too vague. We want to bring some clarity, some language that's helpful for the vendors in the state of California. The amendments before you today resolve that issue by listing out 19 types of handgun ammunition used in handguns. If adopted, the requirements of AB 962, such as storing ammunition behind a counter, as well as taking a thumbprint, will still be in effect, but only specifically for these 19 types of handgun ammunition. Another amendment before you also, too, is just a slight minor tweak to clarify the requirements in AB 962, Mr. Chair, do not apply to California handgun ammunition vendors who ship ammunition out of the state of California to other states, as opposed to the opposite. For that reason, for those reasons and reasons alone, Mr. Chair, as well as Mr. Cogdell and Mr. Cedillo, I respectfully ask for your aye vote to protect both consumers and vendors.
Very good. I know you've been putting a lot of time and effort into this over the past few years, so good to have an opportunity to get it right.
That is correct, Mr. Chair.
We have those who are here in support of the bill. Please step forward.
Good morning. For the record, my name is Nick Wilcox. On behalf of the California chapters of the Brady Campaign to Prevent Gun Violence, we do support this bill. We also support the amendments to this bill, although they're probably not the amendments we would like to see. But we understand the reason for them and support that. I would like to point out for the record that whenever you have a list like this, it's dangerous because the list may not be complete. It could include stuff that shouldn't be there. It could also omit stuff that should be there. And for the record, I would like to point out that we examined this list in the amendments. We also examined the database on DOJ's website of handguns that are approved for sale in California, and would like to note for the record that there are two classes of ammunition that are missing from this list. There's the 17 caliber HMR ammunition and the 48 caliber Ruger ammunition, so they should be on the list. I'm just pointing that out for the record because I understand that this can't be amended at this time. So I guess we all have work to do.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Wilcox. Others in support?
Good afternoon. Ben Van Houten on behalf of Legal Community Against Violence in support of this bill. We are pleased to co-sponsor AB 962, and we support this bill in its efforts to increase further the goals of that bill to prevent handgun ammunition from falling into the wrong hands, and we support these amendments as well.
Thank you.
Amanda Wilcox on behalf of the Nevada County chapter of the Brady Campaign to Prevent Gun Violence, and we, as my husband stated, the Brady Campaign supports these amendments in any effort to clarify the intent of the bill and make the implementation as easy as possible for ammo retailers. That we think is a good thing. Urge your support.
Thank you, Ms. Wilcox. Anyone else in support? Then we'll make room for the opposition to please step forward. So we had three brief statements from the proponents, so we'll take these three, and then others will speak for identification.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, Ed Worley with the National Rifle Association. I find this very fascinating. Last year when we had AB 962 before all of us, the bill started out in its inception That's including all ammunition, rifle, shotgun, everything else. As it went through the process, and the Senate and the Assembly both rejected that concept and refused to pass the bill that way. Now here we are with the amendments, and if you look at look what they've put in the amendments, it's not handgun ammunition. It's rifle ammunition. Specifically, caliber .223 ammo is probably the most popular hunting rifle ammunition in the state of California. So when they attempted to list handgun ammunition, what they've done is now put rifle hunting ammunition into the bill. So that's why the bill should not be passed in this form, because it's not handgun ammunition. Now, there are very, very similar handguns, very bolt-action rifles, bolt-action handguns that shoot one cartridge at a time that can shoot .223 caliber. But this bill specifically has other other rifle ammunition that's listed in it. The other thing we talked about when the bill was here initially in the committee, one of the things that we were very, very concerned about is AB 2350 allows local municipalities to get all the ammunition registration information and have it be sent to their municipalities. In San Francisco, an article came out 2 weeks ago talking about how the supervisors there want to take the ammunition registration list and put it on the internet. This bill doesn't stop them from doing that. And in fact, this bill helps them do this, because the bill says if a local municipality passes an ordinance to where the law enforcement agencies have to give them the handgun registration information, they will do it. But nothing precludes the cities from going to their police chiefs and their sheriffs, getting all this registration information and putting it out on the internet. Now, if you want a list of who to go rob and who to go harass, this is exactly what we were talking about when this bill came to committee ahead of time. This bill doesn't preclude that one at all. This bill has actually gotten worse since it came back to the committee, because now we have a much broader definition of the ammunition, includes all these rifle calibers, and we have this problem with the privacy part of it. So thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Worley. Others in opposition?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Tom Pedersen with the California Rifle and Pistol Association. We're also opposed to the bill for a number of reasons, including those that are already described by Mr. Worley. But one of the things I'd like to point out is that because of the amendments, the expansion of this list includes .22 caliber ammunition, which is primarily used in rifles for target shooting, used in junior shooting programs, Boy Scout programs, to the amount of millions of rounds of ammunition. So there's an undue burden on law-abiding citizens of this state to have to register ammo that is primarily used for rifles. In the case of the .223 ammunition, by far it's one of the most popular hunting rounds in the nation. It's purchased, in millions of rounds for the purpose of target shooting and varmint hunting. And there again, these are hunting cartridges. They're not designed primarily for handguns. So there again, the burden has been placed on these individuals, and it will also increase the cost for these sporting and user groups, because they'll be unable to purchase this ammunition through internet sales and such, because the reality of it is vendors locally are not going to accept ammunition that individuals have paid less for it through these various discount stores. So for many reasons, these amendments are flawed, and we are very opposed to the bill. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Pedersen.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Gerald Upholt representing the California Association of Firearms Retailers. I'll try to put a little different approach on this list than what the prior witnesses have talked about. If you look at number 1, it just says .22 caliber ammo. Doesn't specify rimfire or centerfire. The centerfire cartridges, except for the .223, which is a .22 caliber, by the way, are very rarely used in any kind of handgun, because the handguns just aren't made. There's dozens of centerfire .22 cartridges that are only used in rifles and used for hunting purposes. So just to say .22 without specifying what kind of .22 you're talking about, you're netting in all kinds of things. And ostensibly, the reason for the bill is to prevent crime or to catch people that commit crimes with handguns. Well, adding all these other cartridges into the mix simply isn't going to help with any crime problem. And there is one here that's specifically a rifle cartridge, 7.6 by 39, which is fired by the rifle here, the short-barreled rifle that the author has in front of him, is used in some single-shot pistols. There are a number of companies that make single-shot hunting and competition pistols, which do fire some rifle cartridges. But any criminal would be an absolute fool to walk into some place with a single-shot pistol, because you either have to break them open and pull out the empty and put another one in, which takes a considerable amount of time, or you have to open the bolt and then put another one in. I mean, who's going to commit a crime with a single-shot pistol that's got, any intelligence at all? I'm not saying we all know about dumb crooks, but these cartridges should simply not be included in this bill. It's just not. They're not crime cartridges under the .22 caliber. They're not even. Many of them aren't even. There's no handgun out there that's even chambered to accept them. It's just way too broad. The definition is just not technical enough. I mean, whoever came up with this list really doesn't know about the broad spectrum of firearms and ammunition and what's out there. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. And those additional oppositional voices, if we could have name and affiliations.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Kathy Lynch, representing the National Shooting Sports Foundation. And because of the amendments to the substantive amendments to the bill, the Outdoor Sportsmen's Coalition, the California Sportsmen's Lobby, and Safari Club International hunting organizations in strong opposition to this bill that expands way beyond the cleanup that it was originally presented as. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Elenia Helman-Toller with Responsible Citizens of California, and my opposition has to do with a breach of privacy information. You're asking people, Walmart employees, Sports Authority employees, who sometimes have criminal issues, to be handling a very important information. There's nothing in this bill that requires that these individuals keep it tight, locked up. As a matter of fact, I buy my ammunition on federal.
Gotcha. We had 3 on each side, and so we were just asking for name and identification.
Okay, those books sat out on the counters at these places.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Jason Ryan, California Outdoor Heritage Alliance. We are now opposed with the amendments. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ryan. Anyone else wish to testify in opposition to Mr. De Leon's bill? Assemblyman, we're going to give you an opportunity to respond to some of the oppositional arguments.
Okay, Senator. With regards to the remarks, with regards to the list of the handgun ammunition we have here on page number 8, the 19 types of handgun ammunition, we went to the experts, and we went to the Department of Justice, and we thought to ourselves, I don't think anyone's going to know better than the Department of Justice. So the list that you have before you on page 8, itemizing from number 1 through 19, starting with the 22, ending with the 50. This is a list that has been submitted to us upon our request from the Department of Justice, handgun ammunition that is commonly used here in the state of California. Now, these handguns are interchangeable. Obviously, they do fit the chamber of a handgun. Some of them can be used without a doubt in a long rifle, but they're also common use also, and they can fit in the chamber or they fit in a handgun. With regards to the comment made with the 223 caliber or 223 type of ammunition, this is used without a doubt commonly in an AR-15 handgun. But also at the same time, it's commonly used in a Kel-Tec pistol long rifle number 16, which is a handgun. This is a handgun that can deliver large quantities of ammunition very, very quickly. If you go to YouTube and you do Kel-Tec PLA 16, or PLR, I should say 16. Just go there, and you can see YouTube videos using this handgun, delivering large quantities of handgun ammunition at a very quick pace. Walls are being sprayed, trees are being sprayed and cut down. This is a favorite of gangbangers, and until recently, cartels. Cartels have started utilizing this type of ammunition. It fits into the chamber, and that's why it's also here, the 223. I would argue that the 223 should be included, without a doubt, because of the delivery mechanism, which is manifest in the Kel-Tec PLR number 16.
Question, when you made the request of the Department of Justice, did you ask for ammunition for handguns, or was the request ordered in such a way that it wasn't necessarily ammunition that is used in crimes?
Mr. Chair, if you look handguns, ammunition that are commonly used in the state of California. I have here also too the handgun cartridges. We have 5 pages of handgun cartridges. Now, this measure I don't believe is overly broad. This measure is much more narrow in scope. That's why we reduced it to less than 20 types of handgun ammunition. This is the current exhaustive comprehensive list of all the types of handgun ammunition. A lot of it's interchangeable. Some of them can be used in the long rifle as well as a handgun. We asked the Department of Justice again, and I didn't ask that very specific question, which are ones most commonly used. For example, we have handguns here that perhaps an exotic weapon such as a German Luger. I don't think a German Luger has been utilized with much frequency in 100 Bay Point or in South LA or East LA or other locations. So we've asked for the ones that are commonly used in the state of California.
And the concern regarding potential breach of confidence?
This is, I believe, a consumer and vendor protection measure also, too, because with regards to the consumer issue, we want to make sure that the vendor themselves do not sell this information, the data of the consumer, for commercial purposes. And that's why we want to bring some clarity in this measure as a cleanup measure also to make sure that that vendor, Mr. Leno, one day in the future goes to, and I don't know if it's still the case in the Cow Palace, or elsewhere, and purchases a handgun ammunition. We want to make sure that vendor doesn't sell your data, just like other corporations have been able to do, for commercial purposes. And we want to make sure that the privacy is kept intact, that the consumer is protected.
Mr. Worley mentioned that this would not preclude a Board of Supervisors from passing an ordinance.
For what took place in San Francisco, I don't know the specific details. It's very difficult for me to comment on that. I don't know. This is the first time I've heard what took place. Mr. Worley just mentioned what took place in San Francisco. I have no idea what's going on over there.
And with regard to just the potentiality of some local ordinance being passed?
For a local government?
Right. Does the bill protect the confidentiality of names that could be with law enforcement?
I don't know. I don't know if any responsible local government that would actually put the names of individuals on the internet. I don't know if that's an actual proposal. Again, the way our measure is drafted is that those who have the information, the data, are the vendor and local law enforcement.
We're going to establish our quorum. If you could please call the roll.
Leno?
Here.
Leno here. Cogdill?
Here.
Cogdill here. Cedillo?
Here.
Cedillo here. Hancock?
Here.
Hancock here. Huff. Steinberg right.
Very good. We have our quorum. And Senator Cogdill, you have a question?
Yes, thank you. Regarding these ammunition registration laws, do you know which states in the union have laws similar to this?
States in the union, I don't. I believe the state of Illinois has a similar law, but I'm going to venture to say the vast majority of states, Senator, don't have a similar law that will be enacted in the state of California. We do have local municipalities. For example, the city of Sacramento has a similar ordinance that will go into effect come 2011. The city of Los Angeles has a similar law, but with regard to states outside of California, I believe the state of Illinois.
Okay, so it doesn't sound like there's a lot of data available as it relates to any kind of subsequent analysis that may have been done to indicate whether or not
the effectiveness of the
laws have actually been effective in achieving the goal that you and others set forward.
That's a very good question. The data that I have relied on primarily, bless you, and I don't have my notes with me, the data with me, but I'd be more than happy to get them to you, is actually the city of Sacramento as well as the city of Los Angeles. The city of Sacramento implemented their law just a few years ago, and during the course of the transactions, what was made reference to quote-unquote dumb criminals or criminals who are not very intelligent, believe it or not, you've had individuals who have been felons who walked into a gun store in the city of Sacramento and attempted to purchase both handgun ammunition as well as handguns. During the subsequent sweep of the data, when the Sacramento Police Department, working in cooperation with the district attorney, would review the data, they had issued out arrest warrants. And I apologize, I don't have the numbers in front of me. I can secure them for you, but there was a handful of felons that were captured. You had individuals who had temporary restraining orders. You had individuals who you captured illegal handgun weapons as well as machine guns, as well as a lot of drug paraphernalia and marijuana, cocaine.
I don't doubt that. I guess my question would be, and we know how quickly they do learn. It takes them a while, and they don't learn necessarily by reading the newspaper or paying attention to what laws we pass. Yeah. But when something like that goes down, something that you just mentioned, that word gets on the street quickly. So my concern is that, as laudable as your attempts may be here to actually lower the issue of violence and the criminal use of this ammunition, I have a real difficulty coming to the conclusion at the end of the day that's exactly what it'll do. It seems to me that it's just more requirement, whether it's from the standpoint of the people that sell the ammunition and certainly those that buy it and use it, to make that activity just that much more cumbersome. They're law-abiding folks. They've never had any problem. They never will have any problem, and they represent the overwhelming majority of people that use the product. So, again, it just seems to me to be a way to continually to add additional harassment, if you will, to them and their lives and their the exercise of their freedoms under the Constitution of this country, without doing any real good concerning what you're trying to accomplish here. I also have a question as it relates to, and again, the data, it doesn't sound like any of these ordinances or laws have been in place long enough to really have any kind of empirical data here, but I'm wondering what, if any, penalties are in your bill relating to if someone is arrested and they are in possession of ammunition, or if they use ammunition in this state that they haven't purchased through a registered vendor. What are the penalties for that? If somebody goes to Nevada and buys ammunition and is then using it in the state of California and is found to be doing that, what are the penalties, if any?
I'll answer that question, but if I can just go back to, because I think your earlier commentary, I think they're valid points that you bring up. I think they're valid, serious points, Senator. Here, for example, in the city of Sacramento, when the ordinance was implemented and executed, I think fairly well. I think we do have the empirical data that suggests that. You're absolutely right, Senator. Word of mouth gets around, and it travels very quickly. And in the underground world of criminals, folks figure it out very quickly. You can't go to city of Sacramento, at least purchase it lawfully. If you're going to do so, perhaps you can be better served to purchase it elsewhere, Elk Grove or any other similar city that sells handgun ammunition. Similar point, for example, in the city of Los Angeles, believe it or not, a lot of criminals have gone down to city of Compton. If they don't purchase it using the vehicle, a straw buyer or purchaser to do it lawfully when they have attempted themselves, even if they've gone out San Quentin or Folsom Prison or L.A. Men's County Central Jail, even though they're a felon, they can walk into a store and they can purchase all the handgun ammunition because they don't have a registry framework that exists. So many folks, like you said, Senator, word gets around. They don't go purchase it lawfully in the city of Los Angeles. They go to Pomona or Inglewood or Compton or elsewhere. And the attempt of AB 962 was
the cost of ammunition up both legally and illegally.
I don't think it drives up the cost of ammunition, but my objective with AB 962 was to have a comprehensive, state to state in California. I have attempted with the cleanup AB 2358 is to make this as less cumbersome on the vendor themselves by listening to the criticisms and critiques of individuals and just sort of taking a step back and narrowing the language so we don't throw a wide net and capture every single thing as what was articulated. Exotic guns and guns that are normally not utilized during the course of a crime, at least here in the state of California. With regards to your the first question, I should say, about someone lawfully purchasing handgun ammunition, either in the state of Nevada, for example, or the state of Arizona or elsewhere, there is no penalty. In fact, you as a law-abiding citizen can purchase handgun ammunition via the internet. From other part of the state. With regards to the one's constitutional right being violated, too, I just want to underscore and bring some clarity that this doesn't violate the Second Amendment of the Constitution, the right to bear arms. Obviously, we've had a couple of decisions based in Chicago and Washington, D.C., just lately with the U.S. Supreme Court. This deals solely and specifically with handgun ammunition. Any law-abiding citizen who continues to be a law-abiding citizen under the Constitution is allowed legally to purchase all the handgun ammunition they like. This doesn't curtail their effort, either in quantities or qualities for purchasing handgun ammunition. Again, it narrowly focuses on 19 types of handgun ammunition given to us by the Department of Justice
but
for a little more scrutiny.
It does make it more difficult to do that, and your name is now entered on a registry that we're finding could be disseminated to God knows who.
Well, that's the purpose of the measure, is to make sure that the God knows who never actually ever comes to fruition, and that the vendors keep that information confidentially, and that only local law enforcement will have access to that information. That is the thesis or the underpinning of the measure itself, so we know who actually purchases handgun ammunition in the state of California. Again, and this is my own personal commentary, and I apologize, Senator, if we're in a colloquy. I'll stop when you tell me to stop. If you're a law-abiding citizen, everything's okay. If you're a criminal, and that's the attempt, is to get, and capture the criminals. And yeah, I believe it takes good detective work, because folks will say common sense dictates that, obviously, if you have a law now, a criminal is not going to walk into a handgun store or a gun store and purchase handgun ammunition. You're going to have a straw buyer. Perhaps what we've seen the pattern in my area is significant others who have a clean record will walk in and buy all the handgun ammunition they want, store it in the truck of their car, cruise around the neighborhoods, open it up, and what do you want? We have a cop killer that will pierce the bullet.
The bill accomplishes, I guess, bottom line. So we'll just agree to disagree on that.
The beauty is in the eye of the beholder, I guess, in this case, Mr. Senator.
Any other questions, comments from the committee? Motion?
I was going to ask
Mr. Cedillo.
So it's an interesting discussion about transparency, but I don't know that the Second Amendment, unless you can tell me otherwise, holds a right to privacy aspect to it. So that's one. And I'm trying to see if my staff can get that information for me. On the question of transparency, it seems to run contrary with this open, quote, open carry movement, where people want to carry weapons in public, and yet under purchases want to keep that private. And so I don't know I don't know how to reconcile those two. But I do have to say that the weaknesses of the current state of law seem to all be resolved by creating one uniform standard throughout the state. In other words, someone does come out of Central Jail in Alameda, they go straight down, leave the city, and they're in the county, and make purchases in South LA, South Central LA. All this would be addressed by this uniform standard?
That's our attempt. I've always made it clear that this law in itself is not the panacea, but I think it's one instrument. It's a tool for local law enforcement to utilize to decrease the number of killings we have and the unlawful purchase of handgun ammunition.
Okay.
Sarah Hancock.
Thank you. I think this is a very good bill, which aims at cleaning up some of the questions that were left from last year's bill, and I agree that a uniform standard would make the law much leads to effectiveness. I particularly am struck by the part that says the bill would require a handgun ammunition vendor to provide written notice to law enforcement of their intent to do business. Is that actually something that's not required now?
That's my understanding. That's a critical underpinning of this legislation of AB 962, because if you're a vendor of handgun ammunition and you don't contact local law enforcement has no clue that you're supposed to be providing that information. The funny thing about it is, Senator, if you were to pick up the phone today and call the Department of Justice and ask them in Alameda County, where you represent, I don't know if you represent a part of Contra Costa County, but if in Alameda County, I want to know in Alameda County who sells handgun ammunition, the vendor, the place of business, and who purchases handgun ammunition. They could give you neither, because they don't have the data. The registry, the framework doesn't exist. And if the local vendor does not contact the local law enforcement agent, then there's no communication. And that's the underpinning of the law itself. You need that if you're going to be able to build on the data for local law enforcement.
Thank you. This actually was just a major issue a year or so ago in part of my district. The inability of law enforcement to know these kinds of things. So I'm glad it's part of the bill.
Thank you, Senator.
I would move the bill.
Okay, the motion is going to be to return the bill to the floor of the Senate. Very good. So we have a motion. No other questions or comments from the committee? Brief statement is closed.
Senator, thank you very much for the opportunity to present AB, 962, AB 2358. I respectfully ask for an aye vote.
Thank you, Assemblyman. Call the roll, please.
Leno?
Aye.
Leno, aye. Cogdill?
No.
Cogdill, no. Cedillo?
Aye.
Cedillo, aye. Hancock?
Aye.
Hancock, aye.
We're going to place that bill on call, and I'm sure we'll pick up a few last members to vote very shortly.
Thank you, Senator.
All right.
Thank you. Have a good day. Thank you.
To help facilitate Senator Huff's day, we're going to lift the call. Absent members, please.
Huff? No. Huff, no. Steinberg, right?
We'll place the bill back on call.
vote? Does he have to know?
Please lift the call.
Where's Mr. Chairman on the bill?
Chair is an aye.
Steinberg?
Aye.
Steinberg, aye. Wright?
Okay, it's out.
Bill is out 4-2.
Back to the floor.
Without any further business before the committee, we stand adjourned. Thank you.